Greetings, everyone. Today's conversation is for anyone who has sensed that the most challenging moments in their life might actually be pointing them towards something deeper, clarity, meaning, or purpose, even if it didn't feel that way at the time. I'm joined today by Amanda Solar, founder of SolFul Living and host of the SolFul Connections podcast. Amanda and I recently had the chance to sit together on her show and talk deeply about mindfulness and meditation. And today I'm really excited to turn the tables and explore her story. Amanda's work sits at the intersection of story, mindfulness, and purpose. And she has a powerful way of helping people listen to their own lives with more curiosity and compassion. So, Amanda, welcome. It's really so wonderful to have you here on the show and to get to spend this time together.
Courtney, thank you so much. I feel so privileged to be on your show. And thank you for being on mine too, because you're a wonderful guest and you have such a powerful and important message. I appreciate it.
It was my pleasure, and the feelings are mutual. It was a real joy to be on your show, and I've continued to listen to the episodes of your show. So thank you for all the great work and all the great information that you're putting out there through the show.
Thank you.
So I want to begin with something that I really love that I read about your work, and something that you say is that the moments that challenge us ultimately clarify our purpose. And in my humble opinion, this is profound on a lot of levels. And I say that because from my own personal experience, I believe that holds true. But in the work that I do with others who experience all kinds of challenges, from health conditions and diagnoses to relationship issues, whether they're professional or personal, to different challenges in their work, and really, in my feeling, just being in the world as we know it today. So this has held true for me and so many others that I've taught mindfulness to. I'm curious about when you started to notice in your own life that the moments that challenge us ultimately clarify our purpose.
I love this question. And first of all, I will say that we don't want it to be this way. We
Yeah.
would much rather learn our lessons from the happy times, and
Yeah.
we don't even need any crises or any challenges
Mm-hmm.
to show us the way or point us to whatever we need. But it does seem as though the most profound transformative lessons are found in our deepest moments of either trauma or change or challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I was always the person who was like reading books about what it means to be human and studying and just a seeker in that way.
Yeah.
And then I kind of had a little bit of an experience with manifestation because, I got a job I wasn't supposed to have, and I had children that I wasn't supposed to have. And I thought, okay, I get this. I get this. And so I was living life. And of course, I have my everyday challenges and our moments of crisis, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
not anything that was overly like stop me in my tracks.
Yeah.
And then one day, my second child was diagnosed with a condition that we were told was life ending.
Wow.
And that was the most profound crisis I had ever had at that
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And it put us in Children's Hospital intensive care for months and months. It transformed our life, even post hospital. And my daughter is alive today. She's now 20. This is when she was quite little.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it did change me. And I mean, I've had other crises, that the universe wasn't done with me after that.
That in and of
It was still
itself,
like,
I was going to say that's enough. I think you can call it a day and let's move on from, go to someone else other than you.
that's
Yeah.
what I thought.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, I get it. But really, when the dust settled, I really thought, well, what was that about?
Mm-hmm.
And what can I learn? And it wasn't so much about, oh, this happened to teach me something, because it was extremely excruciatingly painful for my daughter, like physically and emotionally,
Yeah.
and even for my other daughter. Um, but when these things happen, I think we have no choice but to dig through the rubble and find out what, why, how, and move on from there.
And that, again, I'm going back, the word that keeps coming up to me based on what you're sharing is that it's profound. The fact that you were able, I heard you say, like you were wondering what it's about. I think so often, to your point, when things are really great and we are experiencing pleasant moments and joy, we likely have an easier time getting curious about that and being like,
Hmm.
really wanting to get into all the nitty gritty and the details and what was that like and what did that feel like. When things are unpleasant and when they're as challenging and scary as what you went through, a lot of times we contract, we close ourselves off from ourselves, from the experience, from others. And I think it, I actually know, and studies show that it can be harder, more difficult to bring that sense of curiosity, that ability to be with the not knowing, but still want to learn more. Do you attribute your ability, like as you were in the midst of that, like to just get up close and personal with it?
That is a really good question. And I will say that there were moments where I was just sitting in and living with trauma. And
Mm-hmm.
I was in it fully, and
Yeah.
I wasn't perusing it for its lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wanted my daughter to live. That was the thing I wanted. And I wanted our family to survive it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my focus. But because that was such a singular focus, I just couldn't help but learning things along the way.
Yeah.
And maybe it was all of that reading and studying and all of the stuff I had done maybe leading up to that moment,
Mm-hmm.
which is one of the reasons I really recommend people, even in the good times, maybe especially in the good times,
Mm-hmm.
do all of that kind of questioning and your mindfulness work and all of the work that we do, so that when these things happen, we have some sort of platform to find moments where we can live. What I learned, my overarching lesson, is that you can't wait until life is good to feel joy.
Right.
I couldn't wait. I had another daughter while this
Mm-hmm.
is all happening,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't just not experience and share joy with her, or
Right.
else now I have two daughters in crisis.
Yeah.
So I think it's both. I think it's that you're living it and you are traumatized, and have moments where you feel like your skin is peeling off from
Mm-hmm.
pain.
Mm-hmm.
And also you have moments where you're like, okay, I get this. And
Yeah.
really a lot of my lessons in that moment were lessons I learned to help save her life. And then upon reflection, when I was in a safer place,
Yeah.
I could say, oh, these are actually lessons for everyday life,
Mm. Mm.
you know?
It's
So,
sort of the dichotomy between the happy sad, that we can choose to lean in to all of the sadness and how's that going to leave us feeling, but we could also notice the joy, the happiness, and that in turn helps us to level what can feel and what is very challenging. It changes the way we show up for those, not only for ourselves, but for, in this case, your daughter, in
yeah,
your other daughter, your
yeah,
husband. And I love what you're sort of implying, that we need to be strengthening these skills, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through reading and learning. But there's something that John Kabat-Zinn often uses as a metaphor. He created the mindfulness-based stress reduction program that I teach, and he says that we want to be weaving the strands of our parachute so
Mm.
that when we need to use them, that they're sturdy enough that they're here for us. We don't wait until the moment when we have to jump out of the airplane to start weaving the strands. So it sounds to me that you had this strong foundation that grew stronger through this process, and in turn supports you in daily life with, opening up to all of the joy and beauty that's here, that sometimes we miss out in getting caught up in worry of what's to come. But it also helped you to be more grounded and resilient with the great challenge that you went through. I'm curious, like in the process, as you were going through this experience, was there a moment when you sort of noticed that pattern that the challenges in our lives ultimately clarify our purpose? Was it after the fact when things started to turn a corner and your daughter regained more health, or was it something like an aha moment right in the midst of it that you were able to appreciate the way this shows up in our lives?
I love that parachute comment. I'm totally keeping that. If I were not in the middle of a podcast, I'd be writing it down.
I'll send it to
Um,
you. It's not mine.
Thank you.
I can't take full credit, but it's one that John shares that it really landed in a powerful way.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, yes and no, also, as with
Hmm.
everything I think I say. So while I was in the midst of this experience, I did have aha moments. I had a lot of aha moments. And then those moments, it was almost like if you were in the dark and someone shone a little flashlight in that dark space.
Hmm.
And then as my time, as the years passed, the flashlight turned into a lamp and it got broader as I contemplated it and as I lived other experiences. But
Yeah.
for example, one time my daughter she had a critical airway and she ended up being intubated in a very specific way with her head tilted a certain way. And um, one of us had to always be there kind of holding this tube. And that was because she had been on these drugs called paralytics, which I thought were terrifying her. So I had taken her off of them. And so it required a person
Yeah.
being there. Also, I kind of had the belief that someone who loved her needed to be with her all
Right.
of the time. That
Right.
was my belief. So one night I was in her room by myself and the she was intubated, but I could see that looked like she was going to stop breathing, which seemed counterintuitive, but
Hmm.
this is
Hmm.
what I saw.
Yeah.
So I was like, I rang I told the nurse, and the nurse said, I'll get help,
Yeah.
but no help came. And then I rang for the nurse at the
Hmm.
nurse's station. It was like 2 a.m. So, it wasn't busy. Nobody
Yeah.
came.
Yeah.
And I was afraid to leave because I didn't want to make everything worse. So
Yeah.
I thought, I'm going to have to stand in this room
Hmm.
and yell at 2 a.m. for a person.
Yeah.
But I can't do that because that is so rude. I was told to stay here. I was told to be silent. I can't
Yeah.
wake people. Like all of these things were going through my head.
Hmm.
And then I thought, oh, so she's going to die because you can't be humiliated or be embarrassed or do the wrong thing or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so I did yell.
Yeah.
People did come. Um, And ultimately, the learning lesson for me in that moment that I kind of took well beyond that experience, well, there were a few learning lessons in that. Number one, it doesn't really matter. It's like all of those things that people say, what people think doesn't matter, and
Yeah. Yeah.
the people pleasing, all of the things that we kind of, as we grow up and older, think we have a handle on,
Hmm. Hmm.
but is somehow buried there.
Yeah.
And it was just the invitation to live as my instincts told me to live,
Yes.
in a very profound way. It also was a message that I received many times in the hospital because I disagreed sometimes with treatment.
Yeah.
And that is
Yeah.
something I didn't fully understand, but it is this: humiliation and humility are
Mm-hmm.
not one and the same. You can't be humiliated without your participation. Humiliation is
Mm.
like from within.
Yes. Yes.
And so, I mean, I only share that to say that it kind of broke something in that department
Yeah.
that I was then able to carry forth in the rest of my life. Um, you know, and strengthening it in the ways that we are always invited by the universe to strengthen it. But yeah,
What's coming through, I mean, at least I'm feeling like I'm noticing just how as you're telling the story, and I wasn't there, and it's not my daughter. Of course, I have three sons, and as you're saying this, I'm imagining what would come up for me. But just in your sharing of the story, I noticed some reactivity in my own body and all the what ifs in my mind. And what I'm hearing from you is that that was an insanely frightening experience that I imagine wasn't just a second, it was minutes that you could have completely freaked out. You could have the what you're saying about like you didn't want to embarrass anyone. You want to do the right thing. I think we often tell
yeah,
ourselves what we should do or what would be the right thing, but this sense of trust and the sense of knowing, like turning inward and letting all the noise and all the the
yes,
shoulds and
yeah,
that all that dissipated. And I don't want to project, but what's coming
no,
through is
yeah,
that you were able to really hunker down and in the midst of what I imagine was a huge amount of time, but that get that clear seeing and trust yourself. And
yeah,
then with that sense of connection to yourself, and I imagine the deep connection you have with your daughter, that you could use wise discernment to yell for help, to get
yes,
help when you most and she most needed it. So I think that speaks volumes because oftentimes from what I see in my own life and what I see in the people who I help with mindfulness tools, we kind of push down our own
yeah,
voice at times because of all the shoulds and various
mm,
like the inner narrative. But when we can let ourselves, our feelings, our voices speak louder, that it's like an inner compass that it directs us in a way that can make a world of a difference in how the moments of the next moment, the present and the next moments unfold. And
yeah,
so I would love to hear just based on your what you went through, if somebody is feeling challenged in some way, whether they're experiencing their own health challenge or a loved one, or maybe they have another challenge in their lives that is with a difficult person in their
yeah,
world or their profession. Do you have any advice or tips that you would want to share with them as to how to
yeah,
trust themselves, how to trust that they're right where they're supposed to be, but that they have the inner resources to overcome even the greatest of challenges?
yeah. Um, yes, because as we're talking about this, I'm remembering it was bringing all of those things like you want to be pleasant, you want to be
Hmm.
thought of as pleasant.
Yeah.
You also don't want to be wrong. You know, we
Mm.
don't want to be wrong. So they
Yeah.
were telling me that things were okay.
Yeah.
So part of me thought, well, I must trust them.
Right.
So I think even in like a work setting, even if it doesn't seem like it's a dramatic thing, but it's something that's really kind of gnawing at you,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think you're allowed to be wrong. I think it's really also about giving yourself permission to be awkward. It's giving yourself permission to get it wrong. It's giving yourself permission to be thought of as unpleasant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, And so, what I would invite people listening to do is to even do it in small ways. You
Yeah.
know, if they listen, I was the type of person that if you served me the wrong food in a restaurant, I was just going to eat it
Yeah.
because I didn't want to
Yeah.
make anybody upset or mess
Right.
anybody. And there are still nice ways that you can self advocate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's about giving ourselves permission
Yeah.
to be wrong, to be unpleasant, and not to be unpleasant, to be
Yeah.
perceived as unpleasant, because, we're probably going to address it with some sort of um, kindness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But people want what they want. And so, even in a business setting, if you are just simply advocating for, say, you need to go home at a certain time or
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever it is, or if you're in a healthcare setting and the doctor has told you you're fine, this medicine is fine,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what it is, it's about taking what trust, even if it's not a lot of trust in yourself, and practicing.
Yeah.
Do it. And once you do something and you feel the discomfort, it kind of opens the door a little bit. Because
Yeah.
I'm also a big believer that your brain is never going to tell you it's okay. Do not wait for your brain to
Yeah.
say, listen, you're good. It's now the time to say this. You are going to be well received.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to love what you're saying. Your brain, your ego, all of those things, it's trying to protect you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like,
Mm-hmm.
just don't, you know, stir the pot or
Yeah.
muddy the waters. But in life, you have an inner knowing, you really do.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you're just going to have to stir the pot. You really are. And you're going to have to do it before your brain thinks it's okay.
I like the way you're distinguishing the brain in a way from the body. I mean, there is the mind body connection, but I think sometimes, especially those of us who work in very analytical professions, we get trapped. We're so in our heads, we're so in our brains, our minds, trying to strategize and figure things out. And we become disconnected on some level from our
Yeah.
bodies. And what you're saying, like, I love that you're saying, like, we have to, even if it's just little baby steps,
Yeah.
inching in towards the discomfort,
Yeah.
exploring it again with kindness, with gentleness, but turning towards what is challenging, what may feel uncomfortable at first, the more and more we can explore it, just as you were saying during the midst of what was such a scary, uncomfortable experience with your daughter, the more we can get curious and just kind of explore around the surface, the more we can create some comfort. It seems it or get comfortable in the discomfort. It seems counterintuitive, but until we're ready to go there and have that felt sense of what it's like, then likely we're going to tell ourselves, the brain's going to say, no, 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 danger zone,
Yeah.
don't do that. But I
Yeah.
think there's so much potential power, and we open ourselves up to incredible possibility and freedom when we move towards what's challenging.
Yeah. Our brain maybe would keep us in a rocking chair, just like, wake up, go to work,
Yeah.
come home, eat your dinner, go to bed, wake up and do it all again, and you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And yet that's not really living what I call a soulful life. That's
Hmm.
really one variation of life,
Yeah.
but you can really have a bigger, more fulfilling life if you step a little bit into discomfort or a lot, as the case may be.
Yeah. And I think that's a great way to transition. I want to dive in a bit more into soulful living. And I know from having spoken with you that it's emerged from so many different threads, from meditation to holistic health, your work in the chamber, your spiritual life, and I know you're a vivacious reader. So I'm curious, like, how did all of those pieces begin to weave together into something cohesive?
Yeah. So once I was, kind of out of the, we were never, my daughter still has some issues,
Hmm.
that we have to deal with. That's okay. We all have different issues in life.
I was
But
going to
one
say,
thing,
we all have our own issues.
that's right. Exactly. That never seems to change. But once things kind of got calmer, I ended up having a third child, a
Mhm.
little unexpected gift from the heavens. And then I, you know, had a couple of different things happen. So once the dust really settled around, I would say like 2017, I started thinking, oh my gosh, I've learned some things that I think could be transformative. I was also, by the way, an editor of a community and business magazine that the
Mhm.
chamber put out.
Mhm.
So I thought, you know what? I'll write a magazine. And I had this, I was going to call it like Every Day. And then I was going to have an accompanying website called everyday.com. And it was really about how we have tools every day to live our fullest life.
Mhm.
So I had this vision, but I was still working at the chamber, raising my kids, doing the things.
Mhm.
And then COVID happened.
Mhm.
And I had a minute, which I never had really. I was COO of a pretty large chamber at the time, and I
Yeah.
had three children, and I was determined to kind of be my father and my mother. So I was like
Mhm.
running to school with the kids, and I was also working late at night and doing the things. And then I was home, and I was like, oh, first of all, now I see how people are doing laundry. They're home every now and then.
Yeah.
Um, and but I thought, okay, this is the time because I was still working, but not nearly at the same pace because it was
Yeah.
COVID and we were kind of shut down.
Right.
Um, so at the time, then I found out that Every Day was already like a Christian magazine, and my entity that I've created is soulful, but it means a lot of different things to a lot
Mhm.
of different people. So I, sitting in my bedroom with my youngest daughter, just created SolFul Living. And I created it with the purpose of giving people tools and techniques to really live their fullest, richest life, no matter what was happening. The whole point was to live it now, to still be aspirational, to work toward what you want.
Right.
But when we get really caught up in what we don't have and what we wish we had,
Mhm.
that is a really limited way of living.
Yeah.
So I created this website. I asked and invited people to share what's soulful living for them. I had
Yeah.
entrepreneurs and artists, and then I also, as an aside, started doing a podcast. And I had never even heard a podcast before, but I
Mhm.
was late to the podcasting game.
Yeah.
And this podcast was called Two Mamas and a Microphone.
Uh-huh.
And a friend and I just talked.
I love the name, by
Um,
the way.
yes, we were two mamas
Yep.
finally given a mic.
Yeah.
And then when things started to kind of get, quote, back to normal,
Yeah.
my friend went back to her photography business, and I went back to the chamber, but now I had given birth to this entity that I just was excited by
Yeah.
and wanted to really, expand. And I almost didn't know fully what I was doing. I just kept doing it. So I got
Mhm.
certified as a primordial sound meditation instructor. And I was certified as with the Integrative Institute of Nutrition,
Mhm.
which integrated nutrition is about all of us. It's not just about like what you eat. It's about your entire life.
How to
Um,
nourish yourself from every which direction. I
a
know.
hundred
Yeah.
percent.
Yeah.
And so I started the Soulful Connections podcast to connect people with presence and purpose and story, and to say, you know what, let's stop, this pretend, we all have this social media pretend life. And it was really a design to say, let's share what's really happening, the
Yeah.
good and also the challenging. And
Mhm.
let's be connected in that way. We're human. We are human beings. And part of being human is about having all the things,
Yeah.
not just success and joy.
Your dog's chiming in saying this is
I
so true.
know
They
my dog
know.
is
They
like
know.
really going crazy. And by the way, I think she's going to get extra here because my daughter Okay, wait. Let me just pause. I am so sorry.
No, I love it. I love it. I told you this that before we started taping, dogs they know when we're on to something. So she's just validating what you're saying. I do though, as we're in between what you're sharing, I love how your personal experience and how your professional life they started to inform one another and that your experience with your daughter combined with the the change that like you called it like this baby that you grew this new profession that it spoke to you on such a level that you really understood that the moments that are here right now are truly the only moments when we're alive. So why not choose to show up for them? Because as you said earlier, we can't wait to be happy when when the next moment of joy comes. But in this moment, we can choose to show up for it fully, and I just love how this has been woven all through how you show up for yourself, how you show up for others, and what you've created with Soulful Living.
Yeah. So thank you for the dog break.
Yeah.
She just lost her mind. But yeah, it really has grown into a now a solid platform
Hmm.
where I have gatherings of people and we talk about um, grief or fear,
Hmm.
or I usually have a speaker at the beginning and then we kind of branch off and network and build connection. I have
Yeah.
Soulful Living magazine. So the magazine did come to pass, and it really is a magazine to share how we live our lives and different people's stories and different people's techniques, and it's kind of fun, and it can be anything from lighthearted to deep. And then I do have different meditations. Right now I have a little meditation bundle people can buy, but I also have just techniques because, like you, Courtney, I really do believe that if we don't take some time to be fully present,
Yeah.
we kind of can't lean into our most powerful life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I want to dig into that a bit more, but I just have to comment on our lives were very parallel to one another. Granted, I have three boys, you have three daughters, so
Yes.
opposite ends of the spectrum in that regard. But I had two sons, and we had some challenges in the midst of my oldest son and my middle son. But what I learned from those challenges and everything that I went through and my willingness to really turn towards it and to learn ways to support myself, to be with what can be challenging, whether it's with our children, whether it's with our jobs, whether it's just coexisting in the world.
Yeah.
It it brought me to mindfulness. Mindfulness helped me to find some ease, to gain more clarity. And then voila, we had our third son, who, just like you were talking about your third daughter, sort of, we call him the mindful bonus baby in
I
the
love it.
mix. But through the challenges, it really helped me. It's been so much a part of my journey.
Yeah.
It's gotten me to where I am in this point of my life, which, as you were saying, as someone who practiced as an attorney for 20 years, I was so afraid to make the wrong move. But I
Right.
think that, as you've been saying, that there has to be a willingness to at least get our toes wet. If we're not willing to dip our toes in the water, then we're forever stuck. We get caught in the mind of the what ifs, and we can't actually lean into a life that can be so much richer and vivid. So everything that you're you've shared really, really has resonated with me. But I wanted to just dive into something you said a moment ago, because for anyone who's listening and wondering, like, how do I do what Amanda did? How do I listen to my own life? How do I create that space to get
Yeah.
curious and to use that as a guide for how I want to live or lead? So I'm just, if you could share for our listeners, what does it actually look like in practice, or like in motion, so to speak, to be able to turn inward and to listen to your own life, our inner story, to guide us along our way?
Yeah. That is a really wonderful question
It's a layered one,
because,
but you can break it
but
down
it,
in any way you care to.
right, but it's wonderful because I think what I also learned is that we can intellectually know things and still do whatever it is that we're doing because fear is powerful. And a lot of times what keeps us in maybe a stuck place, or maybe doing something that feels counter to what your inside self kind of is pulling you toward, is really fear.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I feel like steps need to be taken in fear.
Mm-hmm.
I think that fear only dissipates from doing. So, first and foremost, I mean, I do sound like a broken record, but incorporate a mindfulness or meditation practice. And when I say incorporate, if you don't do anything, 30 seconds, set your phone for 30 seconds, but
Yeah.
take a minute. I'm just going to tell one other story. I when I came home from the hospital with my daughter, she was on an every 2 hour cycle of medicine. We had equipment. I was back at work. I was driving to and from the house. My husband, we were doing a lot all at once. And I'm like, okay, now wait, I was going to yoga every Wednesday. I started back at yoga every Wednesday.
Yeah.
I was working with, she had an NG tube. I was holding her when she was being fed because she couldn't, she had to be on this machine.
Yeah.
I was doing, so what happened was when I was in the hospital, I left a different person than the woman that went into the hospital.
Yeah.
But when I came home, I lived the life of the old person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And one day I was rooting around in my closet because I had a big event and I was trying to find shoes. And I looked at my closet and it looked as though somebody had come in and vandalized. It was the craziest thing you have ever seen.
Yeah.
And I looked and I thought, oh, that's my mind right now. That is my life. I am looking at my inside self. So
Mm-hmm.
even though I was wearing shoes that matched my whatever,
Yeah.
I was mentally all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did is I stopped whatever was not essential or urgent. And I started to lean into practices that would just center me.
Mm.
So what I would say to anybody, no matter where they are stuck or what it is,
Yeah.
that's really a challenge, and it can be small or big, start with taking a minute for yourself.
Yeah.
And also, what do you want? The world is really noisy. I do think that some of life is aspirational, and that's the fun of it. And right, what would a perfect life look like? And do that regularly
Yeah.
and incorporate practices. We talk about gratitude practices, and people say, oh, okay, I'm going to make a list of everything I'm grateful for. Oh my gosh, I'm doing this every day, and still everything is not even pleasant. Maybe a list isn't what you need. Maybe your gratitude practice is taking a cup of tea and going outside after dinner in front of your apartment or your house or whatever it
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
and taking a breath and looking at the moon. Maybe that's your gratitude practice. So it's really pulling in. I think start by pulling in and then, work out from there. That would be
Yeah.
in a nutshell type of advice.
Yeah, this is really so beneficial, I think, to when you say pull in, like reconnect with yourself and to give yourself a moment. I think so
Yeah.
often we extend the moments of our lives outward that we don't pull in, or at least gently invite our attention to come inward. So if somebody wanted to strengthen their ability to reconnect with themselves, to reconnect with their story. I know you mentioned earlier that you have the Soulful Meditation Bundle. So is can they access that and get some of these tools, these centering tools that you've been speaking
Yeah.
about? Okay.
So they can go on the website, and
Yeah.
this bundle is like 4 meditations for $27. They can buy that, but they can also go onto the website
Mm-hmm.
and they can click on people's stories and they can read what other people did and do. They can come to a gathering, because I do believe that it's really important to surround yourself with people who are uplifting,
Mm-hmm.
who are authentic. And
Yeah.
to that end, I've created something called the Canopy, where every couple of months you can just sign on. You don't have to pay anything. You can come and be part of it. You can, they're virtual for the most part. We do one in person, but you can keep your camera off and just listen,
Yeah.
or you can engage. Um, so go to my website, soulfulliving.com, and feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook. You can reach out to me on TikTok, but I don't know how responsive I'll be because
Same.
I don't
Same.
know what's going on there yet.
My middle son keeps telling me, Mom, you got to do more on TikTok. I'm like, there's so many platforms, and that's like the one I'm least savvy on. Let me just focus on the others for now. But
Speaking of noise, it feels really noisy. I have one daughter that says, get in there. And
yeah,
then I have another daughter that says, stay away.
yeah. Stay in your own lane.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate all these resources, and another piece of your work that I love again is this connection, this interconnectedness that we're all human. And by hearing other people's stories, that in and of itself can be an immense support to know that we're not alone, that there are others who
Yeah.
are dealing with grief or challenges in some way. And just by knowing we're not alone, that can offer us a sense of resilience, a sense of compassion, and more kindness. So I want to thank you for this conversation, because it's been, for me at least, it's been a great reminder that our lives are always speaking to us, and that meditation, mindfulness give us the space to listen with more kindness, with more curiosity. So I want to thank you for sharing your story. It takes a lot of courage to share your story, for your full presence, and for the wisdom that you brought into this space. So before we end the episode, I want to give our listeners and our viewers ways that they can connect with you. I know you mentioned the website, but are there, and I'll include all the links in the show notes, but for anyone else who is looking for more ways that they can connect with you aside from TikTok, are
You
there
can
any
do
other?
it.
Yeah.
I'm there. I think I
But
have 3 TikToks that are out in the universe. Um, and they can also listen to the podcast. I would love for them to follow,
yes,
to engage. If they, my podcast is Soulful, SOF. What is it again? SOLFUL.
I have it on my
Soulful,
phone.
SOLFUL Connections, Soulful Connections.
Yeah.
If it is a reminder, Courtney, like you said, that we are not in this alone, that we all have our story. And please feel free to engage with me. I'm on YouTube. I always forget that one. But the bottom line is, I really appreciate you making space for this conversation. I
Oh,
appreciate, Courtney, that you help us understand um, that mindfulness is not maybe as complicated or as daunting as we might think. And I love that you just bring this conversation to so many. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate being on the podcast.
Oh, well, my pleasure to have you. And yes, to your point, mindfulness, it is very simple. It's innate, it's natural. We all have it. But back to what you said, it can feel really loud out there and in here. But when we have resources and tools like the centering tools that you so graciously share with the universe and those looking to find a bit more ease and balance, that we can strengthen these inner resources. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you for joining us here today. And I hope that you have a great rest of the week and take the best of care.
You too.
Thank you.